Hello everyone and welcome back. I have another special guest with me in the studio today. I'm joined today by the one, the only Rafael Cintron. You may know him already as the host, founder and CEO of Wealthy Expat. Now, Wealthy Expat is a YouTube channel, but an awful lot more as we'll find out. But Wealthy Expat is an invaluable resource for anyone interested in living and working abroad. Rafael, he covers a whole host of topics on the channel. And sort of mostly related to expat living, but he also touches on things like crypto as well. So anyone thinking of relocating at any point in the future, you cannot afford not to be subscribed to Wealthy Expat. So, Rafael, thanks for joining me today, man.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I love your channel. I love your subscribers. Happy to be here.
Likewise. Let's before we get into the weeds, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you came to do what you do?
Of course. I've been doing crypto since about 2016, 2017. One of my friends got me into Bitcoin. He said it was the best thing ever. Didn't really listen to him, but bought $100 here, $100 there. And then I started an online business, e-commerce, made some money off that. And then I paid a lot of taxes on that while I was living out of the United States. And U.S. citizens, we pay tax no matter where we go. So I started learning about tax systems, where to live. And then I found out about Dubai and the UAE, which is where we're right now, where you can pay zero tax. And then I thought there's more countries where you can pay zero taxes. So I went down the rabbit hole, and then I took the money I had made from e-commerce, invested it into moving to a better place, learning about taxes and real estate around the world, and then started Wealthy Expat. And now we've gotten to the point where we have 85,000 subscribers on YouTube. We have a whole advisory team. We help people from making $10,000 a month to multiple billionaires that we've helped at this point. Very happy to say that.
Wow. So, yeah, I think a lot of people sort of seeing the channel would kind of assume, okay, so you guys are a YouTube channel, but you do a lot of advisory work as well.
Yes. When a client comes to us, they tell us what they're looking for. So let's say they're in the UK and they want to move somewhere with zero taxes. We don't just tell them, go to Dubai. No, we tell them all the range of countries we can go, which we're going to talk about right now. And out of those countries, whichever fits the lifestyle that person wants and the money that person has, if they have $1 billion, they can choose 5 countries. They can go buy 3-4 passports and they can go anywhere. But depending on the budget, and then we tell them exactly what they need in that place, we do it for them and then complete the process after that.
Yeah. And I suppose everyone's circumstances are going to be different. Everyone's kind of got a unique kind of case, as it were.
Yes. Many people, for example, they just want tax reduction. That's all they care about. I want to pay zero tax. My government wastes my money. Where can I go? The best place would be Dubai and UAE. You pay zero tax, no matter what, and you go there. If then they start looking at, I want a good lifestyle where I can live long term. Maybe I can have children there. They can go to school. Okay, let's start considering all the options. So every client has a different goal. Sometimes their spouse, for example, or their children have a different goal than them. And then we need to balance those out as well. Okay.
And do you find that are people's motivations for wanting to move abroad, is it usually kind of financially motivated, as in things like tax, or is it often a case of like they're, perhaps just they want a change of scene, or they're kind of fed up with the culture in wherever they are, or is there kind of differentiation there?
I would say it's the culture plus the tax, because a lot of people, let's say the example of the UK or the US, they would stay there if they didn't need to pay 40% of their income. If they could pay 5 or 10%, they would be fine with it. They're tired of the culture. They're tired of the direction of the country, the restrictions that they're imposing on their citizens, plus they're tired of the tax. Most people, it's a combination of multiple things. Sometimes they're tired of the weather. They just want some place where they can have better weather, or they can have less restrictions on their crypto. Because, for example, U.S. citizens, you log into Binance from the U.S., you're done. So they want somewhere else where they can go. They want another passport they can use. It's motivated by multiple factors. It's very rare that somebody just wants to move somewhere because they pay too much tax. It's a combination of multiple things.
Yeah. And I guess it must be quite interesting when you dig down into each individual case. You kind of see that the ever-expanding kind of layers of motivation people have for wanting to move.
Definitely. Some clients, for example, if they're looking to get married in the future, they look at which place has good children custody laws or marriage laws. It goes way deeper than just tax. And people think, usually people that are multimillionaires, 100 millionaires, they think very long term. What's going to happen in 20 years in the world? And those are the people that have multiple layers of decisions.
Right. And when did you start doing this, did you say? When was the date that you sort of started Wealthy Expat and kind of made this your career?
2 years ago, I made my first video. I got a second passport. I invested into a country, $150,000. And I got that passport, St. Kitts and Nevis, and I made a video how I got a passport for 150 grand. Mm-hmm. That video ended up getting around 150,000 views, and people loved it. People started asking me, what other places can we buy passports from? Where can we go to pay zero tax? And then I met somebody here in the government who told me, come to Dubai and promote Dubai. I will make sure it's worth it for you. I gave it a shot, and then Dubai exploded. A lot of people love Dubai, and now we've grown up to this point. So exactly 2 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. And obviously, this is something that seems to have really accelerated since the pandemic, because Definitely. I think the pandemic made a lot of people reassess not just where they lived, but also the cultures that they were in. And then we had the rise of home working and things like that. Digital nomad wasn't, as far as I'm aware, a term that existed sort of pre-2020. So, I mean, do you think this is something that I say Western governments because we're both from Western countries, but perhaps it's a broader catchment. Do you think this is something that governments in general, in sort of perhaps more developed countries, should really be kind of worried about? I get the impression that a hell of a lot of people are looking to up sticks and move.
Definitely. A lot of people, they don't move because of family, because they're used to, some people, they say they're homebodies. They always want to be at home and they always want to live where they were born and so on. Some people are just like that. They will never leave. But most people, they see the opportunity in other places. If you look at, let's say, 20 years ago, I was 5 years old, but other people tell me that the world was not developed as it is right now. Dubai didn't exist. Other places like Singapore were still developing. You didn't really have that many options. It was just America, UK, those are the best places. Let's go there. Now you have a buffet of options. And depending on what you want good weather, you want low taxes, you want good lifestyle. We have about 10, 20 countries that offer that now. And that's what has really pushed so many people out, because there's options. I don't vouch for the government. I vouch for the people. But yes, governments should be worried because now there's options around the world.
Yeah. It's incredible really to think what's happened just this century, just the past 23 years, how much things have changed in that comparatively short space of time. The world has kind of got a lot bigger, but also a lot smaller at the same time, it seems.
It's much easier to fly anywhere. You can fly 17 hours and cross 3 different continents, move somewhere else for $1,000. So it's definitely much more accessible.
Yeah. Okay, so let's put ourselves in the shoes of a crypto enthusiast. Someone who not necessarily works in crypto, but holds a bit of crypto, is really into it, and obviously there are plenty of people like that across the world. And let's assume they're living somewhere, maybe the United States, the UK, somewhere in Europe, basically one of these kind of, what we might call traditional countries. And for whatever reason it is, they want to relocate somewhere a bit more crypto friendly, and where they can enjoy a better life. So let's say they've made that decision. What are the next steps? What are the next things they kind of need to think about?
First thing I would say, geographically, look at where is close to you, because a lot of people, for the example of Canadians, they're the ones that typically want to stay close to Canada. Mm-hmm. A lot of them don't want to make the move to Dubai because it's quite far. It's a couple continents over. It's 18-hour flight. There's not that many direct flights. So you have other places closer to Canada. Let's say El Salvador is now going up. It's developing. It got rid of the crime. You have Cayman Islands, zero taxes, Bahamas, St. Kitts and Nevis, all zero tax. The lifestyle is drastically different than what you'll get in Canada. But at least look at where you are geographically. If you're in the UK, you have a lot more options, in my opinion, than you do in North America. If you're from the UK, 7-8 hour flight, you have Dubai. 2-3 hour flight, you have Eastern Europe. Many very low tax countries like Montenegro, very beautiful, low tax, 9%, 8%. Have a lot of options. Look at where you can go in the span of, let's say, 5 to 10 hour flight. See if any of those options fit you. And if not, then go to the traditional, let's not call them tax havens, because Dubai and the UAE, they don't want to be a tax haven anymore. They're cooperating with other places. But you go to the places that are very open to crypto. UAE, as you mentioned, Singapore, no capital gains tax, although it's very hard on crypto. Other places like Malaysia, they don't tax foreign earned income. places like Mauritius, as we were speaking before, they don't tax capital gains on crypto. Places that are just traditionally good for crypto, geographically, then the places that are traditionally good. And also, if you have family, where does your family want to move? Where do your children are going to school? And consider those options.
Yeah. There's a lot, and I guess that you kind of got almost sort of those three columns, and at some point everything is going to kind of match up, and there's the perfect place for you. And I guess it's an exciting prospect, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people just assume that if you're not wanting to pay tax, then you have to move to Dubai or somewhere like that. But actually, as your channel shows, there's so many options for people out there.
Definitely, and you can combine options as well. I have many clients, for example. They don't like the lifestyle per se of Dubai. They say it's a little bit fake. So they spend their winters in Dubai, 90 days. That's what's required for tax residency. And then they go to Mexico or to some place in South Africa, or they go to Europe and hop between different places. So you don't need to live all your life in that place that you choose. You just need to make sure that you have a tax home somewhere. So your country can't come back and say, you're a digital nomad, you don't live anywhere, pay us tax even though you left.
Okay, that's interesting. That kind of leads into the next question I wanted to ask, actually. So, which is this idea of, obviously, you decide to relocate. So a lot of people tend to focus on the place that they're relocating to, right. But there's quite a lot to take into account the place that you're actually leaving, isn't there? So let's assume you've chosen you're a wannabe wealthy expat. You've chosen your country that you're going to move to. So what do you need to be aware of in terms of leaving your home country?
I would say, first of all, exit tax. That gets a lot of people. They don't know that there's an exit tax. And usually if you're worth over $500,000 in most developed places, over 2 to 3 million, that's when they start taking it seriously. You will pay a percentage of your net worth, even though it's in crypto, even though it's in a ledger, in a safe, in your grandma's house, you still need to report and pay. I always tell people, do it legally. They might catch you 10 years later. You report that and you pay tax on it. So you might pay 20, 25% of your net worth just to leave the country. One of my clients, he's worth around $10, $20 million. He needs to pay Australia $2 million to leave.
Wow.
And you need to take that into account. A lot of people, they leave and they don't realize, wait, I still owe my tax department $2 million. That's the first thing. The second thing is how strict they are with their requirements when you leave. Because some countries, you have to move to a place where they have a tax treaty with your country. That's the case of Norway. A lot of Norwegians, they come to Dubai, they move to Dubai, and they realize, wait, you still need to pay taxes to Norway 3 years after you left. There is no citizenship-based taxation, but you need to pay 3 years because Dubai and UAE, let's say in this example, doesn't have a tax treaty. If you were to move to Romania, as a random example, they have a tax treaty, so you wouldn't pay taxes in Norway. So these things you need to consider. Exit tax, tax treaties, and in the case of US citizens, well, the IRS follows you anywhere you go. So in that case, you really need to make more steps in order to not pay tax.
Yeah. Which brings me on to, because you renounced your US passport, is that correct?
I'm on the way to renouncing.
Okay.
Due to family reasons, I was not able to renounce. I went to the interview, and then I had the opportunity to just go to the embassy and give it up. I talked to my family. I actually have improved my relationship with my family, so I'm visiting them a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
I still always have the opportunity. That embassy, that lady that works there, she said, any day you want, just come here, give up your passport. It's done because you already went through the process.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bigger decision than I thought it was. And I'm still young, so in 10 years, I might think it was the worst thing ever. But for a lot of people, if you have a second option, let's say you have an Italian grandparent and you become Italian through your grandparent, because a lot of people, they can get citizenship from their parents or grandparents, I would, in a heartbeat, renounce U.S. citizenship because Italian passport allows you to travel anywhere you want in the world. You want to go to the U.S. and visit family, you can. With the other options I have 2 other passports, but they don't have visa-free travel to America. So that's where it comes in. It's a big decision. If you have another option, some clients, they have Canadian, they have UK citizenship and US. Give up the US. You really don't need it.
Yeah. Gosh, just from talking to you over these last few minutes, I can see now why people need kind of this advice. Yeah. There really is so much to consider, isn't there? So, okay, so they've this new digital nomad, this person relocating, they've made their decision. They're aware of what they need to do to exit their country, so they're well on their way. So what are the kind of common issues that they might find with moving abroad? Obviously, this is going to vary massively from country to country, but have you found that people tend to encounter the sort of same issues, the same problems sort of wherever they go?
Not really. The main problem I see is bureaucracy, as we were talking before. If you pick the wrong path, if you pick the wrong company, the wrong agent, or if you go to a country, for example, let's say El Salvador, it's very open to crypto. They want crypto to come. They want crypto to invest. If you want to get a residency permit, you're not dealing with the government. You're dealing with local immigration. And it's extremely bureaucratic. I've heard from people it was the worst thing they've ever gone through just to get residency. To renew it is very easy, but the actual shot to get residency, you might have a lot of problems. And maybe you're not used to it if you've always lived in a Western country. You've never had to get a residency permit somewhere else. And then you realize, wow, it took me 1 month to be able to live in this country. Why? Well, everywhere works like this. If you want to go live in the US or the UK, you might wait a year or two just to get a visa. So be prepared for that. Mm-hmm. Second, the language. A lot of clients, they move to Mexico, they move to other places in Latin America, they don't know Spanish, and they think, why did I get scammed? Why did I have an issue with the renewal that I had to do with my company or something? Well, you don't speak the language, so make sure you speak the language. Local requirements, local laws, and also stereotypes. Dubai and UAE, many people think, if I bring my girlfriend, can I stay with her? Can I hold hands on the street? Yes, you can do anything you want. People don't really care. As long as you follow or you respect the religion, you respect the local laws, make sure you research that properly.
Yeah, that's an important thing, isn't it? Because I think so many people most people I think are quite well traveled these days, certainly in comparison to maybe 30 years ago. But there's a real difference between just going to somewhere on holiday and, maybe you're staying in a hotel complex or whatever, and actually going and living in a place and working and having to go to the shops twice a week or whatever it is.
Definitely. And you do have to get used to it. For example, now in Dubai, I know where everything is. I know where to go. I know where I need things. But when I go to new places, let's say, for example, South Korea, I'm visiting in a couple of days. I have no idea where anything is. I don't know anybody in South Korea, and I'm sort of immersing myself in this culture, this giant city where I don't know where everything is. And I'm quite thinking how to do that if I need to get laundry done or something, how to get it done. So that might be a bit overwhelming. Just know that in around 6 months, it'll feel exactly like it felt back home. You know where it is, you know who to call, you have multiple local numbers. You know the drill.
Yeah. And you were saying before we started recording that you've visited sort of 70 plus countries now.
That's correct.
I mean, is that part of the fun of it for you, this idea of going to somewhere, like you say you're going to Korea? Like, I presume you don't speak any Korean and you've never been there before. So is that part of the fun, going to these places and being like, right, I've kind of got to figure out, make it up as I go along?
Definitely. It's an experience for my clients. When I tell them move to somewhere else and they never actually move somewhere, I see from my side what it means to move somewhere new or to go somewhere new. And for example, just a very simple thing, picking you up from the airport and dropping you off at your hotel. You might think it's a very simple thing. Anybody can get a taxi. But then I go to some very random places and I wish somebody order a taxi for me, or I wish somebody order an airport transfer. And then I think, okay, every client that comes to Dubai or comes to anywhere that we offer, they need an airport transfer. So it makes me think, what can I make my client's experience better? And also just to report to people, to tell them this country is terrible. This country is great. They have crypto laws. They're welcoming crypto. Nobody's talking about it. You should invest into it. This passport is amazing. And I get a lot of comments, for example, that say, oh, that country sucks. And then I go deeper in the conversation. Have you ever actually been there? Oh, no, I just heard on the news. Everybody has heard something on the news. I actually want to go there. I want to make a video and I want to show the reality of it.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got to have that. You've got to have that first-hand experience, haven't you? Yeah. Before we kind of look at the crypto side of it, which is obviously of paramount importance to everyone watching, I think it would be good to touch on this idea of money in various places, because back in the UK, where I'm from originally, we're so used to you just don't really need cash. For instance, I didn't really use cash much at all when I was in the UK. I hadn't written a check in years. And in fact, some of my colleagues who are younger than me, I had to show them how to write a check, because out here in Dubai, they do still use checks, which kind of blew my mind, I must say. So, I mean, have you noticed that's a big thing? You go to a place and some places are, cards all the way. You can just tap and go and you're fine. But other places, you're absolutely lost without cash. Do you still find that there's a lot of distinction in that? A lot of different places?
I would say yes, depending on the development of the country. That definitely matters. A lot of people, they want cash to keep going. They want cash to exist. Here in Dubai and UAE, it's a very cash-heavy society. And a lot of people say, oh, CBDC is coming to Dubai. They're going to control you. 99% of people take cash. People are comfortable with cash, with pounds of cash, and they're happy with it. So you can go anywhere and pay cash. So this is definitely not going to happen here. Some places like, for example, Sweden, literally is illegal to take cash in some restaurants. Yeah. It's cashless society, plain and simple. I don't like that direction. I think it leads into CBDCs, control the population, tax the population, restrict it, and so on. But you have to get used to the underdeveloped countries. Let's say you go to somewhere in Africa. I have nothing against Africans. I love Africans. But there are places in Africa where they do not accept cards anywhere. You need to use card always. And the currency is so inflated that you need to bring like stacks of cash just to pay for dinner, for example. And I've had that issue. Lebanon, for example, the currency has exploded, inflated to crazy levels. People need to bring stacks of cash to order an Uber, for example. You have to get used to that, especially in underdeveloped countries. Most countries will be in the middle. One place that I talk a lot about is Serbia and Montenegro. People think Serbia, it's a communist country. They love Russia. It's a bad place. Well, it's developing, very crypto-friendly. People there speak English, growing a lot of Arabs investing into Serbia. Serbia's in that middle ground where everybody accepts cash, but also everybody has a tap machine and a POS, and you can just buy anything directly. So those are mainly the ones that we focus on, like UAE. It's also in that it's super developed, but it has both cash and point of sale. So.
Yeah. And do you find going to kind of less developed countries, is it often useful because, as you say, sometimes you go to a place and the currency is just, you find yourself needing to take a whole bag just to buy some meals with. Do you often use US dollars in that respect? Do you still find that that's a kind of useful thing to have sort of greenbacks on you?
Always US dollars. It depends on the region, obviously. So I was traveling through the Pacific. I went to Vanuatu, I went to Fiji, I went to a few islands in the Pacific, and they all take Australian dollars. Okay. Naturally, because they're right next to Australia.
Yeah.
So the large currency next to where you're going, if it's Central America, South America, typically they will take US dollars just because that's the strong currency there. Yeah, US dollars, Australian dollars, sometimes pounds and francs, they will be very helpful.
Okay, so they're quite open to sort of a lot of major currencies in these places.
Sure. As long as you pay a little bit over,
okay,
and they'll tell you like 10 or 20% on top. You won't pay the real price.
Yeah, there's a premium.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, you will have seen this a lot more than me. Obviously, I spend all my days researching crypto and talking about crypto and stuff. But one thing, because I'm not anything like as well-traveled as you are, one thing I haven't seen so much firsthand is crypto adoption across the world. Now, do you feel that this is something that is very noticeably on the rise? Have you seen a lot of places kind of increasing in how much they take crypto?
Definitely. A lot of services. For example, let's say UAE as an example, you can buy a house, you can buy a car, you can buy anything you want in crypto. Other places, it's sort of hidden. Mm-hmm. So in an example in Serbia, you'll go to an exchange and they exchange dollars for euros and Serbian currency and so on. But in the back, they have a whole crypto division that nobody knows about. And you only know about it if you know the guy that sent you to the other guy and that guy sent you there. And it's a very legitimate operation. They exchange crypto for cash. They exchange crypto to your bank account, and they have a whole crypto thing. So some places sort of hidden from the government. They don't want that exposure. The banks also are very anti-crypto, pretty much all over the world. Yeah. It's sad, but most banks, they know crypto is our competition. We don't want to accept it. Some banks are opening up to it. Some places are definitely in the front line, like the government in France, as you mentioned in one video. Even though France has high taxes, they want crypto adoption. They gave Binance a license. The UAE gave Binance a license. They want to push crypto more and more. So it's not as much as I wish there was, because if I could go anywhere in the world and pay in crypto, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Not just to go through a local bank and take cash. And what if I get robbed with 10,000 in cash on me?
Yeah. It's interesting what you say about it kind of being a lot more in the background in some places. That would suggest to me that actually crypto adoption is probably has probably spread kind of wider than perhaps the official statistics would show.
Definitely. There's a lot of people that use crypto that you would never know that use crypto. And for example, in Mexico, I know a lot of government officials that take their salaries in crypto. And they take, for example, let's say they're going to build a school or something. They take donations in crypto. And a lot of little things that you never hear about just because they keep it on the down low. Obviously, governments say, oh, if you open up crypto, then people can launder money and they can evade taxes illegally and so on. There's always that argument. But if you look at history, really like maybe less than 1% of all transactions are illegal. So,
well, yeah, and I mean, as we've pointed out in videos many times before, using things like Bitcoin for crime and money laundering is probably
Stupid.
the worst. Yeah, it's the worst. Like, it's the last thing you'd want to use because of that traceability. And actually, you know, in terms of sort of overall percentages, it's much more pronounced with cash. I mean, cash is still the absolute king for money laundering and all sorts of illicit activity.
Now, I'll tell you an example, actually, which quite shocked me. There is one particular citizenship advisor here in the UAE. He was selling passports. I won't comment on it, but he was selling passports to sanctioned Russians, and that obviously is illegal. Mm-hmm. We actually at Wealthy Expat, we're not allowed to take Russian clients, so we actually don't work with any Russians.
Oh, wow.
I'm a U.S. citizen. Our company has some U.S. ties. I do not touch Russians. That particular individual took crypto payments from Russian sanctioned individuals, and the OFAC, which is the one that oversees sanctions in the US, tracked all the crypto transactions from those individuals to his wallet, and they knew exactly how much money he made from sanctioned Russians. And it tells you that you can track literally anything in crypto. You will not use it for illegal purposes. It's a very stupid thing to do. So, yeah.
Criminals, beware. Sorry to interrupt you, folks, but I have to let you know about the Coin Bureau deals page. Now, my team and I have been able to pull together some of the best promos and discounts in the whole crypto space. We're talking trading fee discounts of over 50%, thousands of dollars in bonuses, amazing deals at top exchanges, reduced prices on hardware wallets, and much, much more besides. So just go to coinbureau.com/deals, also linked to below, and find the promo suited to you. And now, back to the video. Okay, so Rafael, one thing you focus on a lot in a lot of your videos is passports. Finding the best ones, which ones are good for the right sort of people, etc., etc. So, I mean, I think a lot of people, again, especially from places like the US and the UK and Europe, they kind of take for granted the kind of privileges that come with holding those sorts of passports. But what are the advantages of getting another passport? What can that process offer you?
Definitely. So I have two other passports. The first one I got is St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Christopher and Nevis. Mm-hmm. I love this country, tax-free, 2 islands. It's very underdeveloped, I would say. There has been some controversies in the government of where the money went and so on, but overall, great passport. They fight a lot for their reputation. So the European Union, for example, gives them some requirements that they need to go through. They do them very fast, so they really care about their reputation. To get another passport, it's not just to have another book that you can travel with. And some people think, well, I have a UK passport. Everybody respects a UK passport. Why I need some little island passport? Well, a few reasons. One, for asset protection. It's not for tax evasion. It's not to illegally do anything. It's more, for example, to open another Binance account, another crypto account with your second passport. If at any point, let's say you're a UK citizen and you get a St. Kitts passport, the UK says crypto is illegal and Binance blocks all the UK citizen accounts. If you have a St. Kitts citizen account on Binance, it wouldn't be blocked because you have that asset protection there. You can also open companies under the new nationality that would be divided from your old nationality, from your old country. It can also give you the right to travel to some places that you wouldn't normally travel with the UK passport. Now, let's say in the east of the world, let's say China, someplace in Eastern Europe, they really don't like what the West is doing. They don't like what NATO is doing. If you want to explore some of those places, if you have an open mind, you can go on some of these passports because they are neutral. They have access to both sides of the world. And that's definitely what I recommend, just to have another passport. It's not something that you're going to use all the time, maybe. For U.S. citizens, it might be very beneficial because they can renounce that U.S. citizenship, get that second passport, get rid of U.S. tax liability, and that's it. But for other citizens, it's more about just that protection, just in case. If you buy a $10 million home, you might buy really expensive insurance. It might cost you $50,000 or $100,000 just to protect the home. Well, the same thing. If you're worth a couple $1 million, buy a $100,000 passport, and that'll protect you. And having multiple passports as well, now I have 3. It's a good way to have protection around the world.
Okay. So what's your third one? So you've got St. Kitts and Nevis US passport, and what's the other one?
Yeah, I can't talk too much about it. It's a country in Eastern Europe. We did mention it in this interview.
Okay.
And it's a great place for crypto. A lot of people speak English there, and it's definitely developing very fast.
Cool. Okay, so I mean, what ways can people go about getting a new passport? Because I mean, I imagine it's different from country to country. Obviously, some places it's going to be fairly straightforward. Some places not so. What are the main routes that you can go down to get a new passport, or to get a second passport, I should say?
Right. There's 3 routes. First one is the free one, which is citizenship by descent. You look at your family tree. Maybe your grandma is from Poland, and you can get Polish citizenship. And you didn't know that Poland was part of the European Union, and it's actually an amazing passport to travel the world. Oh, easy. You can get that. It takes a while for the government to process your documents. Usually they don't care much. You send them all your documents, they think, oh, why is this American citizen wants to be Polish? Okay, 3 years later you get your passport, but it's free. Might as well do it. One of my clients, he got German citizenship in 7 years after he applied, but he's now German, and he can go anywhere he wants, and he can live in Europe and do whatever he wants as a German. So it's definitely good to look at your family tree. Maybe your mom was born in Argentina, and it turns out Argentina gives citizenship to anybody born there. So she's definitely Argentinian, and you're also Argentinian. Therefore, you have another passport that you haven't claimed yet. So that's the first step. The second one is citizenship by investment. You can just outright buy a passport. It is not buying the passport itself. It is donating to a country, investing in a country, and getting their citizenship. There's around 10 countries around the world. St. Kitts and Nevis is one of them. Dominica, Grenada, a lot of little islands. You also have Malta in the European Union. That is around a 750,000 euro donation. So you are spending around $1 million just to get that passport. But if that's what you want the top tier, you can definitely get that. And then the last thing is citizenship by naturalization. So living in a place for a long time. Portugal had a golden visa program. Now they've unfortunately closed it. Very tax-friendly country. Even though it's becoming not tax-friendly, it's becoming not too crypto-friendly. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's definitely heading in that direction of the EU, of restricting crypto. They had a golden visa. You can invest, buy a property. In 5 years, 7 years, you can get your passport. Those are citizenship by naturalization, even though you invest in the place. Or most people don't know. I have a friend, for example, he's been living in Germany for a long time. He has a German wife, everything in Germany, and he actually can claim German citizenship. He didn't even know. He had his old passport, didn't even ask anyone if he could claim the German one. You can, because you've been living in Germany for over 7 years. So that's definitely something. Look at descent, your family tree. Those are free. Those are easy. Then you have investment, which obviously is not free, is expensive, but you can get it very fast. In 6 months, you have a second passport. And the third one is just by living in a place. So Argentina is a good example. A lot of people go to Argentina, live there 2 years, get the passport, and get out. Those are the options.
Okay. So going back to citizenship by investments, now that I presume, does that have different kind of, I guess it's different from country to country. Like there's always going to be a particular amount. So is that usually, you say you're not buying a passport, you're donating to the country. What form does that take? Is that usually just buying property, or are there kind of other routes of that as well?
So there is, if you're going to do the donation route, it's quite funny because they literally give you the country bank account. It's the Citizenship Investment Unit bank account. And then they give you the bank account and you literally just make a transfer there. It's just a wire transfer of $100,000, $150,000. That gets approved. 2 months later, you have your passport. Sometimes it's by real estate, although be very careful because most of these Caribbean countries, they are prone to hurricanes and very large, powerful, strong hurricanes. And your real estate might just disappear. Yes, you can buy hurricane insurance, but do you really want your house to be blown away by a hurricane? Probably not. Give the $100,000, $150,000, just give it as a donation, get your passport right away.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I guess the idea of owning a property in the Caribbean or another country is kind of nice, but you've also sort of got to maintain that property and look after it. And so in that sort of sense, like, do these places then, everywhere then requires you to spend a certain amount of time in the country?
No. All the citizenship by investment programs, with the exception of Malta, you do need to actually spend time on the island because it is strict. It's EU. It's a great passport. Right. All the other ones, you don't even need to go there. I haven't actually even been to St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm planning on going. Have never been, don't know what it looks like, nothing. All the other countries are the same. You don't actually need to go there. Now, for example, there was a program, there's a country called Grenada, where you can apply for a U.S. visa if you had Grenadan citizenship. And a lot of people bought Grenada, and they were able to apply for U.S. visas. The U.S. now made it mandatory to live in Grenada 3 years in order to apply for that visa. So you can see that they're pushing in the direction of we actually want some connection to that country in order to get extra benefits out of it. But if you just want the passport, you just want that extra protection, extra travel privilege, then definitely you don't need to go there.
Okay. So, I mean, a lot of people are potentially sitting on a new passport without even realizing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Their family, maybe you have a child in another country. That's something very interesting. A lot of people go have birth somewhere. This is common. If you're coming from the West, you don't know anything about this. But a lot of Eastern Europeans, a lot of Asians, they go to the US and Canada and they have children. And those children are now the citizenship of the country where they are born. So if a child is born in Canada, he is now Canadian forever. If you have a child in Uruguay, as a crazy example, he is Uruguayan. So now he has a passport for the rest of his life. And it's actually a great passport. So some people are now they're having children in those South American countries, staying there for a little bit. And as the father of that child born in that country, you could also claim the citizenship.
Okay.
So that's also a strategy.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess that makes sense for a lot of countries. You know, we were talking off camera, weren't we, about kind of demographic decline in a lot of places. A lot of places are seeing kind of, especially young people, go elsewhere.
Right.
In search of work or opportunities or whatever. So I guess anything that can entice people to come and I guess hopefully start a family in a new place is going to be a good option for a lot of countries.
Definitely.
And when you say a Uruguayan passport is a good passport, what makes a passport a good passport to have?
That's a great question because it's very vague. What I would say, a good passport is a passport that gives you access to over 130 countries around the world, so you have good visa-free travel. You don't want to get a visa to go to Europe. If you want to go to Italy for the vacation, do you really want to go to the embassy and go get a visa? Probably not. So a good passport, in my opinion, has access to the EU, to the Schengen area, access to the UK. In some cases, the other Eastern European passport I have does not have access to the UK, but it's not a big deal. I'm not going to the UK every couple of months. So Europe, definitely one. Has access to Latin America or parts of Asia. So for example, some passports don't have access to Singapore. And Singapore is a great country to connect, to be there. It's just a beautiful country overall. I absolutely love Singapore. A country that has Singapore access is technically a good passport because Singapore only gives access to select group of countries and so on. For example, Uruguay has access to Europe, has access to a lot of Latin America, has access to a lot of the East as well, a lot of Asia and Africa. So it's a really balanced passport. Another good one would be Mexico. People think Mexico is horrible. It's a very dangerous country. Their passport gives you access to Canada for 6 months. Getting a US visa might be tricky, but you can do that. UK, Europe, New Zealand, all of Asia. I mean, it really opens the doors up to a lot of places. And if you're an American or UK citizen, you might think, I don't care. I already have that privilege. Yes, but you have it under another nationality, under another passport. So you do the asset protection, plus in the case that you need to give up your original passport, you have that access.
Okay, and obviously, again, there's so much variation, but in your sort of wide experience, what countries and territories have been the most kind of welcoming, if you like? Now, I guess by welcoming, I guess sort of firstly kind of open to having people from Western countries come and relocate there, but also in terms of making the process sort of as straightforward as they can. What places have been kind of most welcoming to, let's say, digital nomads? Because I think that tends to encompass sort of a fairly wide subset of people these days.
Definitely. Depends on your income. Many countries, specifically low tax ones, will give you a permit if you're making at least, let's say, 6 figures a year in profit or through investments or through crypto or whatever. The problem sometimes is proving your income with crypto. That's tricky. For example, Malta has a very interesting program where you can invest some money, but they will not allow it to come from crypto. It has to come from financial investments in traditional finance. So they don't allow crypto. The best countries that I would say, UAE would be on the top of the list. Honestly, it's easy, it's fast, it's great.
Yeah.
It's one of the best. Geographically, again, look at other places. Cayman Islands, It's UK territory, very crypto friendly. You have Bahamas, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, Mexico. You can just get a permit with $3,000 a month. I mean, it's very simple. A lot of places in Europe, although they are not tax friendly, they will give you a digital nomad visa. So Portugal, very simple to get a digital nomad visa. You just show you make money every month. Spain as well. Malta as well. They have a digital nomad program. It's not specifically called that, but it's pretty easy to get it. And places in Asia as well. Thailand, super simple to get a residency permit to live there. You can pay around $20,000, live in Thailand, do whatever you want there. So I would say, geographically, look at where you need to go. A lot of Australians, they tend to choose Thailand or Indonesia. Indonesia, if you want to start a business, input some money in there, you can definitely go. So I would say non-Western culture countries, those are typically the easiest ones. So the ones that are at the head of development, they want to welcome crypto, they typically have some sort of program that is very simple to migrate there. The ones that have low taxes, they want more people to come invest in those countries. I would say the best resource is just honestly watching videos about those countries, because some of them, they have a certain lifestyle. The Cayman Islands, very developed, great place to go, zero tax, but it's very boring. It's just a couple of islands. And if you don't want to be bored, maybe Dubai is a better option. So I would say just watch videos about all of these places.
Yeah. I think probably a lot of people have a perception of, oh, it would be great to live on a Caribbean island, all year round. And I guess it would in a way. But yeah, there's that thing, isn't there? There's such a big difference between going on holiday for a few weeks and then actually having to be in a place 24/7, 365, in a lot of cases. And I guess you need to ask yourself those kind of questions, don't you? It's like, what is life going to be like day to day?
Exactly.
Even if you are living supposedly in paradise. And so in your experience, which countries have you found have kind of been most welcoming for people into crypto?
It depends how you define welcoming, because there is a difference between government and also traditional finance in that place. So UAE, even though I'm here, I can't really bash the UAE. I have nothing to bash against it. But banks are tough on crypto. They don't want to say, oh, come and open a crypto account. You open a crypto company, you go get a bank account for it, they will deny you. They will tell you, sir, please go home. There's no option to get a bank account for this company. Even though the UAE itself and the government itself and the crown prince and everybody is pushing crypto, the banks are not pushing crypto. So we do need to make that differentiation. If we say government, UAE, El Salvador, some country in Latin America, Portugal, heading in the direction of not being crypto friendly, but still, there is a large crypto community, a lot of people using crypto. Malta, no tax on long-term capital gains, so you can definitely go to Malta, not pay any tax. Cyprus, even though it's not my favorite place, but you can definitely go there, pay less taxes than you would somewhere else. Let's say Mauritius is a great place for crypto. You don't get taxed on it, anything like that. You can actually open a crypto company bank account, but it's an island in Africa. Maybe it's a little bit far from you. I would say in the East, in Asia, there's definitely crypto openness, even though it's very hidden. So for example, in Thailand, you might be able to buy a villa for a couple of Bitcoin. It's not really promoted by the country, where Thailand it's a tax haven for crypto, and you can come and invest your crypto here and come and bring your crypto. Yet people are selling villas for Bitcoin. So is that crypto friendly? Well, technically, yes, because you can bring your Bitcoin and buy a house. And that happens in many places around the world.
Yeah.
I would say we need to really make the list of unfriendly countries to cryptos. I would say most of the West, with the exception of some European countries, the US, UK, Canada, I mean, all these places are heading in the direction of CBDC, control crypto, restrict crypto, tax crypto, make it harder for people, close down their exchange accounts, give us more information about them, make a list of the non-friendly ones that you see going in the horrible direction, and then all the ones that we mentioned here, consider.
Yeah. And it's a fascinating, it's a fascinating dynamic that's playing out, isn't it? You're seeing these people in these kind of Western countries that I guess are making essentially a false economy. They see crypto as a threat. Obviously, as you say, they want to introduce CBDCs and more control. And in actual fact, what they're mostly succeeding in doing is driving people away.
Right.
Yeah. Now, before we kind of wrap it up, I just want to ask you, I'm so fascinated by not only, what you do in terms of the services that you offer and what you talk about on Wealthy Expat, but just how well-traveled you are.
Thank you.
So what are your sort of, obviously I imagine this list changes a lot. What are your 3 favorite countries that you've been to, in terms of kind of culture, maybe lifestyle, and also I think it's got to have a crypto element as well.
There's 3, and they also tie into the best education because obviously that matters. And you see 20, 30 years later how the country will look like based on the education. Mm-hmm. And now you're seeing in the United States, education is really declining. People are really becoming less and less smart. And we will see in 30 years how this is going to be a society of not smart people. The 3 countries that I would definitely put on this list are UAE. Education is top. Maybe there's not that much nature. You can fly somewhere else and get nature, but people are getting very well educated. I know 17, 18-year-old people that are extremely smart. They've grown up in Dubai. They speak 5 languages. Their mom is from somewhere and their dad is from somewhere completely different. It's beautiful how it really mixes here. The second one would be Singapore. They've been tight on crypto. They were tight in general. Mm-hmm. I saw your video. You said they're going tight on crypto. They're strict. But Singapore is strict on everything. If you do something wrong, if you're late, they're just strict on everything. It's created a beautiful country out of what once was an asshole. So it's really worked in history. It's a great place. Nature combined with city. Everything works properly. People are always driven and pushing. I would say it's a great place. And then Switzerland would be my 3rd pick if you are very high net worth. Mm-hmm. Switzerland has a lump sum tax program where you can pay, let's say, $500,000 a year, euros or francs, or 750,000 francs or 1 million francs. If you make 10 million a year and you pay 1 million, not that much, 10%, to live in Switzerland, which nature, mind-blowing, society works very well. The water is the cleanest in the world. If you want to talk about other things that have to do, for example, air quality, water quality, food, people around you, how fast they age, like just extra things that you might think about, where am I going to live? I would pick those 3 places.
Yeah, I haven't been to Singapore. Singapore is kind of on my list.
Definitely.
But yes, obviously live here in the UAE, which I'm a big fan of. And yes, Switzerland is a mind-blowingly beautiful place, isn't it? So, and are there, you're so well traveled, but are there sort of any countries that are on your sort of bucket list to visit next?
I would say Uruguay, as I mentioned, definitely a place I want to go to. Other places in Africa, I'm looking at some opportunities there, even though overall it's quite underdeveloped. Mm-hmm. And I would say other up-and-coming places in Asia are definitely on my radar, like Cambodia, Vietnam. Mm-hmm. They're opening up. Everything kind of works like a Wild West, where you can, if you want to buy a place in crypto, if the owner accepts crypto, then he will sell it for you in crypto. It's just like the government doesn't really care, doesn't really intervene with people. So those are definitely on the radar. And I forgot to mention some countries. If you're a little bit more wild and you want some extra picks around the world, then definitely look at Eastern Europe, the Republic of Georgia, even though it's right next to Russia. And I don't know what's going to happen there. People are very afraid and they want to join EU even though they can't. It's a great place for crypto. You can cash out crypto. You can open a bank account for crypto. I mean, they're very crypto-friendly there, very progressive. Even though the country itself is not super developed, you have Serbia, Montenegro, other places like that. If you're a little bit more adventurous, Bulgaria, I would choose some of those places.
Yeah. Georgia's an interesting one because I'd noticed that it's not very far from where we are now. And it's, again, one that I'm quite keen to visit. When I was back in the UK over Christmas and New Year, I was talking to a friend of mine and she DJ'd there. And she said the 2 things to know about Georgia is the wine is amazing.
Yes.
Well, the people are amazing as well, she said. And also they're really into techno. So I guess anyone watching, if you're into techno, Georgia's your place. But I had no idea they were into crypto as well.
Yeah, it's very simple. I actually went to a bank. I opened a bank account in 24 hours. No residence permit, nothing needed, which is very strange in many countries. And then I sent crypto. I said $10, but I sent crypto and it was there immediately. So wow. I started testing it with crypto. A lot of my clients use it for crypto. Just with high balances, if you start sending 20, 30 grand, they'll close the account. Yeah. That's why I said you really need to be adventurous for some of the places that I test out.
And it's so interesting to think, like everything that we're seeing now, people from Western countries and elsewhere kind of moving abroad, this digital nomads becoming a thing now. I wonder how much this is going to change the makeup of countries, the makeup of the whole world over the next kind of 20 to 30 years. We're going to see so much more migration between countries. It's a potentially really fascinating thing, sort of 2-3 decades down the line.
Definitely. What you're seeing now, it's always going to show up 20, 30 years later. So the education level, crypto adoption, crypto restriction as well in the US, they just want to tax it more. They just want to make your life harder. They want to impose more restrictions. Well, more people are going to leave, more smart people are going to leave. In 20, 30 years, what does that give you? Well, maybe a degenerate society. Who knows?
Yeah.
In other places like here, they're bringing innovation. What's that going to bring? Well, a very educated, very high net worth, extremely welcoming society.
Yeah. I guess it's a thing for politicians to consider, isn't it? Because I think so many politicians, especially I noticed this in places like the UK, but I think it's the case in the US as well, they tend to have a very short-term outlook. Because, okay, in the UK, you have, a government has 5 years between elections, 4-year presidencies in the US. So they generally just tend to look ahead to the next election. Whereas it seems that so many other countries, whether they're democracies or not, but are kind of looking at along a lot longer time frame.
That's true. And a lot of people say, well, why do you live in a dictatorship? Why do you promote dictatorships? They're not dictatorships. They're ruled by one person. But if you look at a company, it's also ruled by one person. The CEO, he has advisors. But why the company remains with the same CEO for a long time is because he has a long-term vision to grow that country. Same thing happened in Singapore. The only reason Singapore is a great country is because one guy said, let's turn this slum, because it was really a slum back then, bunch of Chinese, uneducated people. He said, let's turn this into a beautiful country with money, with investments, and he turned it into a paradise over the course of decades.
Yeah.
Yes, they think very short term. They don't think in 20 years, if I change the education system from this to this, what's going to happen? Oh, the next election, they're going to elect me. Whereas here, you're thinking really in decades and generations as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to be said for democracy, but at the same time, it's kind of often hard to marry that up with long-term progress. And I guess we're going to see that play out really interestingly over the next few decades. And what I just wanted to ask before we sign off. So we've talked about how digital nomads are becoming kind of more and more commonplace. I think it's obvious that this trend is kind of going to just increase. So is there anything else that you think that we haven't discussed, that any sort of aspiring digital nomad or anyone who's a digital nomad already, anything else that they need to be aware of, anything else they need to consider?
I would say your family is going to be the biggest obstacle. Your spouse, your children, your mother that doesn't want you to be far away. So make sure that your family understands why you're moving, and make sure it's not to just give it to your government. Oh, I'm paying 40% tax. I'm going to leave tomorrow. I hate my government. Consider you're not going to live there anymore. You're going to have restrictions on when you're going to live there. You're going to also have to structure your life properly. So make sure, I don't just tell people move somewhere and F the taxes. Consider your long-term plan. Just like these governments consider long-terms, decades, you also for your life.
Yeah. Family is much more important than sticking it to the government, isn't it? I remember when I said, when I told my mum I was moving to Dubai, the first thing she said was, "Oh no!" But yeah, they come around to it. But it's a big thing, isn't it? It's a big thing to say to people, even though, as we say, the world's got smaller. It's still a big deal to say I'm moving abroad or wherever.
Definitely.
So, Rafael, this has been great. It's been so good talking to you. Where else, if people are watching, obviously Wealthy Expat is the channel to check out on YouTube. Where else can they find you?
I would say YouTube is the main thing. I educate there. I give my experiences. I teach people there. Wealthy Expat, you'll find a lot of our videos. We also have a website, wealthyexpat.com. You can work with us. You can become part of our advisory clients, and obviously we'll help you depending on your net worth. Also have a Twitter, Instagram, all Wealthy Expat, Wealthy Expat. Make sure it's the verified one, the real one, because there's a lot of fakers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we will leave links to all of the places where you can find Rafael and follow Wealthy Expat down in the description. Rafael, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. There's so much good alpha there. So thanks for watching, everyone, and we will be back again very soon.